Welcome all of those who are here on this June 7th. As I said earlier, it was meteorological summer, so we'll call it summer already. And those of you who are watching, whenever you're watching, if it's June 7th or June 17th, welcome. Thank you for tuning in to our Unity Monroe YouTube channel. I was inspired by watching TV several months ago, and I thought, oh yeah, let's do that wonderful story. A story you may have heard before about the only survivor of a shipwreck, and he gets stranded on a small deserted island. You've probably heard that story before. You know, think of Castaway with Tom Hanks, right? Or as I was inspired by, because I'm a child of the 60s, Gilligan's Island. Tuning through and turning on and going through the channels, and there was Gilligan's Island on there. So my question about Gilligan's Island was the fact that who in the world pitched that TV show to the network? You know, it's like they're stranded and they were only supposed to be on a 3-hour tour, but they've got all this stuff. Who would take that on a tour? And why in the first season do they not name the last two people? This is how much I kind of sat in front of TV when I was a kid, because I know the theme song to Gilligan's Island, Beverly Hillbillies, you name it. So I kind of am getting off track here, Jonelle, if you know what I mean. Because I want to tell you a story about this man stranded on this island. And what did he do? He prayed feverishly for God to rescue him. He wanted someone to rescue him from that particular situation being there. So he looked out on the horizon, nothing. Day after day, he looked on the horizon, nothing. No one was seeing, no one knew that that island existed. Finally, he managed to build a little hut to put his stuff in, to get shelter, shall we say. And this went on for, a couple more weeks, seeking some sort of help. He goes to the other side of the island to kind of get some stuff, maybe some coconuts or whatever happens to be over there. When he comes back to his side of the island, his hut's on fire. And immediately he falls to the sand, to the ground, and wailing up to the sky, God, how could you do this to me? I'm losing everything. He was stunned with disbelief and pain and anger, frustrated. Finally, after he went to sleep, he was awakened that morning by the sound of a ship coming in. The ship was blowing its horn, and he was awakened by that, and he looked out, and they were there to rescue him. And he said, how in the world did you know I was on this island? It's deserted. Nobody knows where it is. Nobody knows anything about it. How did you know I was here? And they replied, we saw your smoke signal. Now, immediately his thought was, and you probably know the moral of the story, his thought immediately was what? This is the worst thing that has ever happened to me. When my hut's on fire. So immediately he did what? He jumped to a conclusion. And yet it was because of the hut being on fire for whatever reason, the smoke went up. A ship was able to see the smoke and came to rescue him. And so when we think about maybe some of the worst nightmares we've been through, we think, oh, where is the blessing in this? Or have we even approached it in that respect? So next time we have a situation like that, or our hut's on fire, shall we say, burning to the ground, we just don't know. We may not know what is the outcome. Maybe that's your experience. Maybe you've had that experience looking for the greater good in whatever it may be. How often do we, oftentimes, shall we say, sometimes jump to a conclusion? Here's the thing that happens in our life, and we jump to a conclusion saying, this is what's going to happen. But we don't know. It's kind of like trying to look at the universe through a $20 telescope. We're only going to see a portion of that. And yet, who knows what our life may be as it's playing itself out, as we're looking at it. And so when we think of that picture of our experiences, we kind of grow into it. We kind of try to understand the very best that we can. But oftentimes we do what? We label it this way or that way. For the man who was having the hut experience, the hut was on fire, he probably labeled that experience the worst experience or a bad experience, or just getting stranded there in the very first place being a terrible experience. So when we look at negative things in our life, sometimes we do jump to those judgments and say, This I'm going to label as bad, or this I'm going to label and say is good, but we don't know. Again, it's like looking at the universe through a $20 telescope. We're only going to see so much. Is this what Jesus meant when he talked about this idea of how one judges? When you look at the book of John, in John 7:24, it says, stop judging by the outward appearance, but judge what? Judge with righteous judgment, or the right use, shall we say, of judgment. So what is the right use of judgment? He's not saying don't do anything. Notice he's not instructing us to just sit there and not do anything. He's saying use the discernment, move away from the false appearance. What is the false appearance? Well, we don't know. We don't truly know, do we? But oftentimes we say, or we go to, or we jump to that conclusion. We say, this is the way it's going to be. But as Jesus is saying, don't judge with that only appearance that is in the human condition that we're in, but judge with a right use of your judging power, your perspective. So it's not an idea of non-action. The action is how we look at things, how we perceive things, how we discern things in a way that assists and helps us through whatever it may be. Now, again, this is a difficult and challenging thing in the human condition, in the human situation that we're in, or in the human experiences that we've gone through, our own lessons that maybe we've learned or haven't learned. We deal with specifics wisely, non-judgmentally, which gets us to this point of knowing and discerning and declaring that we don't know, but the best is yet to come. That, again, is a non-judgmental thing. It's just putting it out there and saying, non-specifically, this is the way it's going to be. It's going to be good. This is the orderly process of life. I think this is where you talk about the power of discernment. What is the power of discernment? To discern something. The power of discernment comes into play. To discern something means simply to lay hold of it with the understanding, especially of that which is hidden or obscure. Think about something you discerned and you didn't know it was there. Now all of a sudden it shows up like a ship on a horizon, blowing its horn, waiting to find you, waiting to rescue you. You get what I'm saying with that? Discernment is the power of our mind to fashion things in a totally different way, not looking at it just from the human perspective, but seeing and discerning things spiritually, to be spiritually enlightened, to look at things not just from the pros and cons of it, but just saying, I'm open to whatever the process may be. This is simply the difference between discernment or judging things and saying, oh, I've got a financial challenge. I've got a health challenge. This is what I'm going to jump to, the conclusion. And instead of that, we discern, how can I grow, move, and be moved and inspired in these moments, in these activities of mind? To me, discernment is this idea of how one remains poised. How can I remain confident and strong? Because all of that is within you. It's within us. How can I remain centered in this moment, knowing that nothing can change the truth of my being? Everything out here can look kind of wonky, if I can use that word, wonky. It can look kind of bad. From our human condition, we can label it, and yet I don't know. We don't know. When we discern something, we uncover, connect with spirit, with God mind, if you will. Some of you may have read the book called If Life is a Game. Let me go back to that, what Fillmore said about it. Spiritual discernment, the inner spiritual faculty by which we may receive the revelation of God mind. That's what I was talking about earlier. That idea of receiving a connection, an understanding, a wisdom that moves us forward. In the book, If Life is a Game, These Are the Rules by Sherry Carter Scott, she talked about the heart of her book is really about living with faith. Living in that faith of consciousness and heart, not fear, but in faith. And she has one of the very simple rules of this particular book. States clearly, there are no mistakes. There are only lessons. Now that sounds real simple, does it not? Sure, it is. But it's a challenge to put into effect. Because right in the midst of something we're going through, right in the midst of a health challenge, right in the midst of a relationship kerfuffle. That's a good word, kerfuffle. I'm coming up with all kinds of good words today. Right in the midst of a relationship breakup or financial challenge, it's hard to see and say, oh, this is a mistake. It's hard to say this is the lesson, but we don't know. We don't know. We can only stay in that moment of discernment where we say, the good is yet to come. I may not see it. I may not feel it right now. I'm in the midst of all kinds of stuff. Drech, another good word. But it's only lessons there, my friends, as Sherry Carter Scott talked about. This idea there's only lessons in these things. Nothing to fear, but to have that sense of faith, that capacity of faith. Yeah, it's very easy in the human condition, is it not, to jump to a conclusion. Here's this situation. My finances are in trouble. Cancel that thought. But over here, I'm going to jump to this conclusion and say, oh, this has got to happen. We don't know. I don't know. But I do know I can stay centered, and we can stay centered in that discerning mind. That discerning mind, as Fillmore talked about it, where we're connected with what? Spirit, God mind. And God mind does what? It inspires us. It moves us. It directs our course instead of jumping off to a negative conclusion. It's easy, as I said, to jump to those conclusions in the human condition, in the human situation. But the bottom line is simply, there are no mistakes. There are just simply the consequences of what we've done. Now, what are we going to do? Listen for the lesson, the opportunity. Ralph Waldo Emerson put it a different way, 200 years ago. Well, not quite 200 yet, but he said, every calamity is a spur and a valuable hint. His way of saying it. But is he not saying the same thing as Sherry Carter Scott said, that simply there are no mistakes, there are only lessons? It's a spur and a valuable hint. What's the valuable hint in my hut being on fire? Metaphorically, of course. None of us live in huts anymore, hopefully. But we sometimes go through that kind of experience. So I think there are really three levels, three states of consciousness we have to be aware of in moving into the direction and the course of discerning, having a discerning mind, having a mind that is ready to see the good, to let go of a judgment that says, oh, it's got to happen this way, because we don't know. Spirit knows. That spirit that is within us, and we quicken it, we enliven it. The first of this is simply we invite and activate our compassionate self. To invite and activate it. Because it's always there, the compassionate soul and self that you are. I've made a mistake. Oh my God. I took the wrong direction. I went the wrong way. I got in the wrong relationship. I didn't encounter the right financial picture, shall we say. So now what do we do in the human condition? We are not real compassionate from time to time, right? You ever made a mistake and did what to yourself? You beat yourself up? Let's not do that, friends, because it just compounds the challenge. We've got the challenge. Now we've got the extra challenge, Mary Ann. You know what the extra challenge is? I'm beating myself up. find, activate, quicken your compassion itself. It says, I made a mistake. I don't know what's next. But I know I'm not going to sit there and beat myself up over this. It's non-judgment. It just happened. So to be compassionate toward ourselves, as well as anybody else, is recognizing we did the best we could in that particular moment, according to our consciousness. Now, here's the opportunity to do what? To quicken and enliven not only our compassionate self, our discerning self as well. And to say, I will choose differently. I will move toward a better good, a better light, shall we say. Number 2 is simply similar to that. We invite and activate our self-forgiveness. Now that we've kind of beat ourselves up and we've tried to work through that compassion, we forgive ourselves, because the next moment we might go back into that sense of mistake and guilt and pain all over that. Forgive yourself. Forgive others as well. Don't blame others. Don't rail at God. Don't rail at yourself, but forgive. As Jesus talked about, it's an unconditional thing. It's not conditioned by certain things that have to happen. It is love in expression, unconditionally. Is my heart willing to forgive doing a misstep? Self-forgiveness, forgiving ourselves as many times as you would forgive a little child doing what? Learning how to walk. They get up and they walk again. They try again. The same as Jesus implied in all of his writings, to love, to forgive. How many times? 7 times 70, infinite amount. And number 3, we invite and activate the power of discernment. To discern something simply means to receive that insight of God mind, to lay hold of what? Of that which may be hidden. Because here's how our eyes observe things. Here's how we sense things from the human perspective. And yet, discernment is to see that which is hidden and obscure. And only when we're connected fully in a moment of quiet and contemplation, when we're focused on discernment, can we hear that still, sweet, quiet voice. You see, when I'm focused on judgment out here, oh you, oh this, oh God, what am I getting? A cacophony of sound. It's all bells and whistles and clicks and whoops over here. But when we shower ourselves with compassion, with self-forgiveness, with discernment, it's stillness. It's quiet. It's a readiness that allows wisdom to enter. So there's a difference between judgment, which is all, and discernment, which is, we have those good experiences in life and we say, oh, this is great, this is fantastic, this is good, this is God playing a part in my life. And yet Spirit, God is there even in those broken moments, even in those moments we feel a sense of brokenness. God is always there. God is always present in our happy and our unhappy moments. God is not separate from that. God doesn't participate in that. We're the ones that are foisting that upon ourselves. But God doesn't bring it into our lives. God is just present. Now, how will I be present with God? Through the discerning mind and voice and heart. To invite ourselves into that moment, not to judge life by an appearance, as it said in the Bible, in the book of John, but to remember that whole and holy promise of discernment, that whole and holy promise that, yes, I may not see it, but all things always work toward the highest and best, toward our good. So let's take a few moments just to sit back, to relax, to maybe listen a little bit to that still and quiet voice of Spirit. And invite yourself to close your eyes to properly relax with feet firmly there in front of you on the floor and hands by your side or in your lap. And just taking a moment to breathe in and to breathe back out. And to just quietly say to yourself, I am attentive. I am relaxed in this moment. I am connected on a soul, spirit level, breathing in and then breathing back out. To just quietly feel and listen and know that there is a sense, a quality of peace, a quality of wisdom and understanding that we may have not understood before. For it is from the depth of my soul loving presence that I choose to see in a wiser, more sure way, a sure way of understanding, of knowing that I am one with all of life, with creation itself. I am part and parcel of that wisdom of spirit. And in that oneness, I am connected in mind and heart and soul. I look out at my life experiences right now and in those things that I've been holding on to. And I perceive a field that is vast and ready to be harvested. It is the field of divine possibilities. It is the field of faith and inspiration. It is the field of knowing that no matter what I see right now or feel, God's infinite good shines into my soul. I have the power of discernment to allow that flow of good that I may not know of at this moment into my consciousness, into my soul, into my life experiences. No matter what it may seem to be, the power of discernment is always ready to reveal that greater gift. The gift of grace, unconditional, the gift of the greater good. The gift of I just don't know right now, but I allow for a deeper faith and trust. And so I move into that agreement in a moment of quiet, serene contemplation, in a moment of just simply declaring the discerning mind and heart within is now connected to that which is. I need not judge it. I just simply discern and know the greater good is always at hand. So invite yourself in this very space and place to move to that quiet moment, placing there upon the altar of possibilities those challenging moments, those moments of outward appearances. As we lay them forth on that altar and invite the quickening and discerning mind of Spirit of God to just simply bless and move us and quicken us. In the silence. When my hut's on fire, I may only observe and see what simply is there right in front of me, and yet spiritual discernment invites me to see beyond and into the inspiration of the discerning mind and heart. And so I am quickened in God mind this day, loving presence, as I expand my consciousness and see the whole picture in a more enlightened and lighter capacity. Thank you, loving presence, for the power of spiritual discernment this day as my faith is quickened. And so be it. Amen.